Mrs. Happy Catholic here, seeking to bring you authenticity, perspective, and connectedness. Welcome. Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Mrs. Happy Catholic, and today we have on Dr. George Mulcaire-Jones again for our part 2 on the NFP series. And George is a Catholic, longtime practicing OBGYN with Maternal Life International. And that's a worldwide organization that helps mothers and families and does fertility awareness training and offers all kinds of things to help support families and Catholic families and to practice morally permissible options and to care for each member as they need it. So that with that being said, we did a part 1, which I will link to in the description below. And so that was the first part of our conversation. We're finally back to do part 2, where Dr. George is going to talk to us a little bit about the method of NFP. And so just getting into that, I just wanted to ask you, Dr. George, if you would say there are any helpful prerequisites for couples looking to use NFP.
Sure. Thank you, Laura. Yeah, and certainly to have a strong, good, respectful, communicative marriage is great. So, in our work in Africa, before we teach NFP, couples usually go through a program that we call the Faithful House, which uses the metaphor of a simple African house to build their marriage. And for example, the foundation is in God. And then we have 4 pillars of love, faithfulness, respect for each other in human life, and communication. And then we find that kind of once couples strengthen their marriage through that program, then NFP really works. As a part of that formation with the Faithful House, we talk about the marriage bed, about sex in marriage, and that too. Which again, in Africa, that's a bit of a taboo, and to kind of get that, because that's important to be able to use NFP as well. So I really think that kind of just working on your marriage so that you're together there. Having that foundation, those pillars and alignment there is really important. You have to be working together, as we see as we go through the method. It's by definition, NFP is a couple-based method. So it takes the participation, involvement, and support of the husband. And so, yeah, you're right. Without that, it doesn't work.
Oh man. Okay. So how I've heard different kind of comments about NFP, especially from like women who are raised traditionalist, and that they've been talking to me about trying to practice it in their families, and they'll kind of joke like, "Oh, it takes having 3 kids to figure out how NFP even works, haha." And then maybe they're just so demoralized, they're like, "I can't get this to work, and so I'm just gonna quit." So I'm wondering how we would speak to people in that situation who obviously haven't been prepared very well ahead of time, because a lot of times in trad communities, they're talking about NFP isn't a part of marriage prep. They'll just be like, well, if you ever need it down the road, talk to a priest then, and get permission for it or whatever, which actually isn't required by the church. But also it's like when you're desperate to use something, then you got to figure this thing out, and it's so foreign to the way you've been in your marriage up until that point. It can be really unsettling for a lot of couples, and then they wonder, is it even effective? Like, what's the point? And is it hard to use? So I would just ask you, what you would say to that.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're right. The time you want to learn it is, ideally premarital. Is that before you got married, that you familiar in that, and then sometimes the problem is, as Catholics, we say, oh yeah, we understand that the church is opposed to artificial contraception with good reasons, and they are for us to practice. We're supposed to practice NFP, but then there's not the infrastructure available where women really and couples really learn it. And then they get in a position, as you said, okay, that's number 3, and this method didn't work and that method didn't work, but who knows if they really understood it. And now you're in a difficult situation. You have your 4-month-old that's nursing, and the 3 kids ahead of them that came every year and a half apart, and you're going, okay, this is really hard. This is, and again, that's a challenge. So what we can front load and invest in helping couples learn NFP, for women, even before they're married, even as, starting at, puberty, they can learn fertility awareness, to learn to monitor their periods and monitor their cervical mucus, so that they have that just as part of a general health. And we use in Africa, we use the term fertility literacy. You want to be literate about your body. And we as a culture are profoundly illiterate. And contraception is technological illiteracy. It says, you don't need to know any of that. You just need to take the pill, or you just need to let me put this IUD in you, and that type of thing. So they never learn about their body.
Oh, wow. No, that's so cool that there is an option and it's becoming more available. And I know there's different methods for NFP. You touched on that a little bit in part 1, that kind of a different method might just fit every different couple. And there's multiple ones out there. You mentioned the Marquette method and some other ones, but you and Maternal Life International, like, you guys teach a certain very basic method that is really accessible to everyone, right? So if you could walk us through that, that would be great.
Right. Yeah, sure. No, I'm happy to do that. And you're absolutely right. There's a lot of different methods, and we'll get into this a little bit in the presentation of that. I'll get a little ahead of myself, but when God created the world, he saw that it was good, but he did say he saw that it was perfect. And I can say the same of that for a lot of human endeavors. And if you look at NFP systems, a lot of them are good. None of them are perfect. Okay. So there's some that, maybe just use a single marker of fertility, and they're simpler to use, but probably less effective. There's others that are more complex that use multiple markers that have a higher effectiveness rate, but they're more difficult to use, or like the Marquette method, which I think is great. You have to have an electronic fertility monitor, and you have to buy the test strips every month, and that too can get sometimes pricey. So again, you're always that trade-off.
Right. That's cool. Okay. That's good to know. Cause I'm not familiar with all of them, but I want to be more educated. And like you say about starting your fertility awareness at puberty, like, because my parents were trained in it, and so they taught all of us girls. So I remember charting ever since I had cycles starting, and I kept all those for a long, long time. And so it was like, oh, I know what's going on. I know what this means. I know when my body's doing this. And I always had irregular cycles, but I was still able to kind of follow along anyway. So I didn't have to worry about that. Then when I got married, like, oh shoot, now I have like this whole thing to figure out. And then,
Sure.
and it can be harder to determine that, within marriage, obviously. That I just really appreciate having that awareness of my body and understanding the good way that God made it to work. And whether I ever got married or not, it was just valuable information.
Yeah, absolutely right. And some people have referred to a woman's menstrual period as a vital sign. And knowing your fertility cycle, that really is. It's telling you about the health of your body, and whether you're using it for natural family planning, or, as you say, even before you're married, and that to learn about your body, work with your body, understand your body, and what it's telling you through your menstrual periods. Okay, yeah, I quit having menstrual periods. Well, that's not normal. What's going on? Or all of a sudden my cycles became irregular. That type of thing is a bit of a vital sign that's telling you about your health.
Oh, that's cool. Awesome. Well, do you want me to add the slideshow to the stage here? We can.
Sure, we'll do that. They won't have to look at me as much then. That's a plus.
Trying to
Okay.
figure out which one of us has less hair, because
I
mine's
think that, yeah, so we're all good there. Okay. So the slides are up, and I'll go ahead through this. And if I start to ramble too much, Laura, you just reel me in there a bit. Okay. So, as Laura said, I'm the medical director and founder of Maternal Life International. And the method we developed that we're going to be talking about is used in our programs in Africa. And I've also had patients use it in the United States when I was in practice. So it's kind of more around the world a little bit.
Cool.
Okay, well, guess what? I'm going to start off with someone who has nothing directly to do with natural family planning. And he is a Jesuit priest of kind of a very accomplished philosopher, theologian. And there's people like who are even Lonergan scholars and that too. And what he really studied and wrote about is how human beings come to know, uh, both scientifically and spiritually, how we understand things. And one of his books was entitled Insight, a Study of Human Understanding. And I've tried to read him in the original, and he's way too smart for me. And so my wife at one point studied him a little bit, and she's also too smart for me, but she has kind of drilled down some of Lonergan's insights, if you will, and I think they're profoundly relevant to NFP and pretty much to any endeavor in life. So I'm going to give you two Lonergan takeaways, and then we're going to kind of use this as we go through.
Okay.
So the first takeaway from Lonergan is the way humans beings come to know is through listening and asking questions. So, for example, you think of a child learning language. You know, the child listens, he hears, says, well, "What's that mean?" Or ask a question about it. And then, if we look in the Gospels, you know, the first reference to Jesus after the infancy narratives is when they find him in the temple. And if you read Luke, they'll say, well, what was he doing? You know, he wasn't in there lecturing the elders and that. He was listening and asking questions. And when he was queried by Pontius Pilate, you know, there was a question, what is truth? That he asked to Pilate. And he asked Peter, who do you say I am? And as you know, it just his whole dialogue with people was one of listening and asking questions. Okay? Foundational to human consciousness, listening and asking questions.
Awesome.
And in some ways, that's what a woman is doing with her body, is she's listening to the body and she's asking questions. Oh, well, what does that cervical mucus mean? Okay, it changed from its character when it was sticky and now it's like egg white. What does that mean? You're listening to your body, you're asking questions. So that's the first takeaway. The second takeaway is something that is called the 5 imperatives of human consciousness. And I'm going to ask you, Laura, what's an imperative?
Oh man, something you have to have.
There you go. Perfect. Yeah, it's an essential thing. It's a vital importance. And that's what our human consciousness, it needs these 5 imperatives. And so here they are. And I've actually made my children memorize those when they were growing up. And to this day, I still will ask them, well, what are the 5 Lonegarian imperatives? And if you taught those to your kids, they're at that age where they could understand. Yeah. So here they are. Be attentive, be intelligent, be reflective, be responsible, and be in love. And that's what they are. And as we'll see, we'll kind of apply that to any human endeavor. So let me give you an example of that is when teaching your teenager to drive and then having them drive off to their job or to school. We had kids that went to Gonzaga and they would have to drive from Butte, Montana to Spokane. And so what you do with driving is basically you're teaching them the 5 imperatives. First one, be attentive. Don't be on your cell phone. Don't be gazing out of the window and take your eyes off the road. Be intelligent. Use your mind to read the highway signs and road conditions. Be reflective. Okay, think for a moment. It's late at night and starting to snow. I'm really tired. Do I really want to drive from Spokane, Washington to Butte, Montana over a mountain pass or two? Be responsible. Don't do foolish things. Wear your seatbelt. Don't drink and drive. Don't exceed the speed limit. And finally, be in love. Be attentive, intelligent, reflective, responsible, all in love. You don't want to have an accident and harm yourself or your siblings or friends that are with you. So those are the 5 imperatives. And
That's
again,
awesome.
you can apply those in so many different ways. And then what Lonergan said was that 5th one, be in love, actually goes and it loops back up to the first one, be attentive, and it kind of weaves through them all. So they're all kind of, if you will, inflamed with love.
Oh, that's so
And
cool.
that's the fullness of human consciousness, that we're attentive in love, intelligent in love, reflective in love, responsible in love. Okay, so next. And sometimes I just went with the first one. Okay, Matt, just be attentive when you're driving. Start there. If you get in the first one, that's great. So again, and then you can get one more little insight into those imperatives by contrasting them with their opposites. So let me ask you, Laura, what's the opposite of attentive?
Well, inattentive, like distracted. Yeah. Not
What's the
paying
opposite?
attention.
Yeah. How about intelligence? What's the opposite?
Oh, well, ignorance. And
Ignorant?
yeah.
Okay, good. What's the opposite of reflection?
What's the word? Well, if you're not reflecting, you're just skimming across the surface of the pond like a rock. You're just sort of doing and not focusing in on yourself. So it's like mindlessness. You're just sort of like going through the motions, like mechanical almost. Yeah.
And then what's the opposite of responsible?
Well, irresponsible and
Irresponsible.
not taking care. Yeah.
Yeah. And finally, what's the opposite of love? Not being in
Oh,
love.
not being in love. I mean, well, like Pope John Paul II taught that the opposite of love wasn't hate so much as it was use. You
Sure.
either love somebody or something, or you use them as the means to a selfish end. So
Sure. Yeah. So right. So we want everyone to be engaged in those 5 imperatives. And as you pointed out, the opposites are not so good. And to use NFP, you have to be the attentive, intelligent, reflective, responsible, and loving. And NFP will help you grow in those. Okay, so let's move on here. Thank you for those 5. The next kind of introductory point is I like to think that of your body, a woman's body and a man's body for that point, but as your good friend. So what's a good friend do? A good friend listens carefully and thoughtfully to you. A good friend tells us about ourselves, like, okay, yeah, that's not going right for you. And you might think about that. A good friend lets us know if things are well or unwell. And so that's really, I think, to see your body as your good friend is really essential for the practice of NFP. What's it telling you about yourself? So that's another kind of, if you will, contextual things. Okay, let's go on here to, as I said before, with NFP systems is they're good, but they're not perfect.
okay.
And maybe that's part of God's design, because sometimes that imperfection leads to a child that never would have been there. Just to tell you a quick story, our youngest son, Liam, has Down syndrome, and he came about because we were using our system of NFP. At that point, we were using colored beads, and I had sent off all my models to Mexico or Africa or something. So we kind of lost track we really used anything. And boom, Liam came. And, he's now 24 and he's just the greatest gift. We can't imagine life without Liam.
Right.
And so again, did the system fail? Well, it did because of kind of error, but it didn't. It provided a profound blessing in the life of Liam. So maybe that's the way, but there's no such thing as a perfect system. And if anybody tries to tell you that there is, it's not. Okay. All right. So the first principle that we find is that male and female are different. As it says in Genesis, male and female created them, and he saw that was good. So a male has continuous fertility unless he has an issue with his fecundity, his possibly sterility. And by continuous fertility, we mean that he's always making sperm 24/7, 365 days a year from puberty and sometimes into quite late old age. Okay. But that's men have the easy job. Their fertility isn't hard to figure out unless there are fertility issues, which certainly there can be male infertility, but it's continuous fertility. Women have cyclical fertility. In fact, they're only fertile for about 6 days out of the cycle. We call that the fertile window, and we'll talk more about that. So their fertility is limited to that 6-day window each cycle. And like men, they become fertile at the time of puberty. And then their fertility ends at menopause. The average age is between 49 and 51, but probably fertility declines. Well, it starts declining probably in somewhere, the 30 to 35 range. And then once you get to 40, it really drops precipitously at that point. So usually it's extremely unusual that you're going to get pregnant after 45, 47 or something. It does happen. So again, female fertility, cyclical fertility, it's limited to fertile window and ends at premenopause, basically.
Right.
Okay?
Okay.
We good with that?
We're good with that. I'm having a thought because actually after one of my last videos where I talked about NFP, this one fellow made a response video where he talked about like, fine, if you don't think you can have another child right now, just practice total abstinence instead of periodic abstinence. Like, that's not a Catholic practice. There's no argument for it. I mean, like, there was a lot in there that I have dispute with, but that thing I was like, total abstinence, okay. And I'm like, because I'm thinking about what you're saying, like the man's fertility is continuous and the woman's is periodic. Like right there, it's sort of saying like it has these seasons for a reason. Like there could be so many reasons why that is, but it's like if people were just supposed to always procreate every time they made love, why wouldn't the woman be continually fertile too?
Right.
I mean,
right.
It's kind of like, well, there's this on off for a reason. Like it builds in these kind of rest periods, or like that every month you're not necessarily going to conceive, even if you are making love pretty regularly, you could still miss the window, or or maybe need to miss the window because you're like, my body needs more time to rest and recover before I do this again. And like, so I think it's so weird when people say NFP isn't really natural, or it's just organic contraception or something. And I'm like, what? I mean, it makes sense. NFP makes sense to me according to the design that God put into people.
Yeah, no, I think that's an excellent observation. And, certainly there's other animals, if you will, who do have, cycles where both or fertility, where both the male and the female are fertile all the time, and that too. And then there's different patterns in that. But I do think that as you say, God created this pattern, and it's for a reason. There's a time, a season for every time in the universe, and that there is just that time for women that's possibly fertile, and then for men it's not. But and they have to harmonize with that. That's what NFP is about as well.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
Okay, great. So,
Yep.
okay, so let's talk about this fertile window. And this is basically, if you boiled NFP down, is to saying, um, when is my fertile window open and when is it closed? So a woman can only conceive 6 days out of the cycle, and that is called the fertile window. It consists of the 5 days before ovulation and the day of ovulation itself. And so, really, what it's about is let's see if we can approximate that fertile window. And if a couple is trying to conceive, they're going to have intercourse during the fertile window. If they are postponing pregnancy, avoiding pregnancy, they're going to have intercourse outside the fertile window. So it's how do we identify that fertile window? Okay. And then here's a picture of a window, and you see that one of the biomarkers is the cervical mucus. There is one of the ways we know about that fertile window. Okay. So let's go back to our friend Bernard Lonan, and let's kind of go through the NFP system with those 5 imperatives. Okay. So first one is everyone
Be attentive.
be attentive. Okay. So you're listening, you're asking questions, you're attentive. So this is uh, 2 things that we have to be attentive to in terms of trying to identify that fertile window are your menstrual cycle, when you have your menses, how many days it is, and then your cervical or vulva secretion. So this gets a little, people in different systems use different terms. So what you're looking for is cervical mucus, which is made in the cervix, but some people call that you're looking for cervical mucus because it comes out of the vagina. Some people call it vaginal discharge. Sometimes the vulva is where you sense it at, the sensitive skin outside the vaginal opening. So some people say, the vulva sensations. So again, there's a little terminology there, but it's basically you're looking for the presence or absence and characteristics of cervical mucus. Okay? That's what you're listening for, and you're asking questions about and being attentive to.
Okay.
Okay. The second thing that you're being attentive to is the nature of your menstrual cycles. And what do you see there, Laura?
Well, it looks like some women are having regular cycles, 1 full cycle every month. Some women they're different lengths, so they get spread out. They're not necessarily having one every month. And then amenorrhea, no cycles. That means something isn't right. Oh, no.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. And sometimes it could be, certainly, obviously before puberty, a girl doesn't have them, and then after menopause. And then sometimes, in postpartum lactational amenorrhea, which we talk about, it's normal not to have periods. But you're right. Otherwise, you quit having periods. That's telling you something if it isn't those circumstances. So actually, yeah. So you're saying, hey, being attentive. Do I have regular cycles, irregular cycles, or amenorrhea? Okay.
Right. Okay.
All right. So let's go back to being attentive. How do you do that? So what you have to do is feel or sense, see, touch, or test to see if there's cervical mucus and what it's like. And you do that. This is not a real good diagram, but basically there's the vaginal opening, there's the urethra, there's the lips of the labia of the vagina, the clitoris. Those are just the basic anatomy there. And it's interesting, in West Africa, they use the term for the vulva, they call it women's skin. It's the skin of a woman and it's actually very descriptive. And it has a high density of nerve fibers, so it's really can pick up if it's very sensitive and can sense if there's fluid, if there's mucus, if there's wetness, and that too. Okay, so that's kind of what you're looking at. What is your menstrual cycle like, and what are your vulvar sensations? Okay, so there's different ways of categorizing it. We use 2 for mucus. So and I should have maybe every day, at least 3 times a day, morning, evening, afternoon, whenever a woman uses the toilet, and she wipes herself before urinating, she's looking for this cervical mucus by what she feels, sees, and tests. She's going to feel like, do I feel wetness? And when I use the tissue paper and wipe, do I feel it glide like there is some kind of lubrication there? Okay. So she's going to see that. Or does it feel dry? I don't feel any wetness, any lubrication, and it feels dry when I wipe. Okay. Um, and then seeing to look on her undergarments and on the tissue paper, do you see any mucus? And so, we get down to real basic body fluids. Mucus comes from your nose, and you can recognize it there. You can also recognize it on the tissue paper when you wipe, or on your undergarments. And just like mucus in your nose, you can say, oh yeah, it's kind of dry and it's kind of thick, or it's really runny. You moms with kids know all about mucus from kids' noses, so it's there's different kinds. So you can do that. And then finally, if there is mucus that you see either on the tissue paper, on your undergarments, you can pick it up and you can test it. You can see if it feels slippery, or if it feels sticky. And then if it feels a little slippery, you can try to stretch it to see if it stretches or if it mounds up. Okay? Mm-hmm. So that's a routine. And you say, well, that's kind of complicated. But after you do it a while, according to women, that it becomes almost second nature. Okay? Use the toilet, wipe yourself, ask yourself, do I feel wetness, lubrication? Do I see mucus? And then what's it like when I test it? Okay?
Okay.
All right. So the first kind we characterize is egg white mucus. And it's literally, if I took an egg and busted it here and took some egg white, it would kind of look like that. It's slippery, it's stretchy. You can kind of see through it, but kind of not. But again, it looks kind of like raw egg white. And you feel wetness with egg white mucus. You see mucus that's clear or slightly cloudy, and that mucus feels slippery, and as in the picture shows, it stretches. Okay. The second kind of mucus is what was called sticky tacky mucus. Now, with that kind of mucus, you can kind of think of it. Do you still use Elmer's glue in
yes.
the world?
Yeah.
So Elmer's glue, it's kind of like a little bit like that. It's a little sticky. It's not runny like egg white mucus. So a woman's not going to feel wetness and lubrication. If she does, that's egg white mucus. This is not something she's going to feel that runniness. In terms of what you would see, it would kind of look like this. It kind of looks like a little bit like Elmer's glue. Sometimes it can be a little yellowish, brown, and it's thick. It's not clear and runny and that. And then when you test it or touch it, it's going to be sticky and kind of mound up, and it's not going to stretch. Okay. Mm-hmm. So you have egg white mucus and you have sticky mucus. Okay. Sticky tacky mucus. Some women say, well, gosh, I'm not quite sure what it is. It feels like it's both or something like that. So there can be kind of a bit of a, if you will, kind of a transition, but by and large, you can categorize, this is, if it has any egg white mucus characteristics, it's egg white. If it has any sticky tacky mucus, it's sticky tacky. Right. All right?
Right.
Good. And then this is so important. Dryness. Gosh, I don't feel any cervical mucus. I don't feel any wetness. When I wipe, I don't feel any glide like that. I look on my undergarments and the tissue paper. I don't see any mucus. So there's really no mucus to test. So dryness is real important. And I should have had a slide and I don't, but maybe I'll hit on this a little bit, is to conceive, you need three things. You need sperm from the man, you need an egg from the woman, and you need cervical mucus. If you don't have cervical mucus, there's no transport mechanism for the sperm from the vagina up to the fallopian tubes where fertilization takes place. So dryness is really an important observation. Okay. All right. What's the second imperative?
Be intelligent.
Be intelligent. There you go. Okay. I assume this couple is intelligent. I don't know. I think there's on the slide there, but so
Yeah,
right.
books in the background. That's a good sign.
There you go. There you go. They got a computer, so they seem to be on the level. Okay. And so intelligence is a gift from God, to be able to use our mind and reason and so forth. So when we say be intelligent, we're not telling people that they're stupid, whatever, but we're just saying to kind of use that to learn, to know, and so forth. And then when you're NFP, you're using that intelligence, that foundational knowledge. Okay. So what do you kind of need to know to practice it? There's two things that you need to know: is your menstrual cycle pattern and the cervical mucus, vaginal, vulvar observations. So we're going to do that first one here. And it's really quite simple. And this is something that's been kind of validated in studies. So there's two questions you need to determine if you have regular cycles, irregular cycles, or amenorrhea. Question number one: are you having periods or not? And yes or no. Okay, you say, yes, I am having periods. Boy, we go right to question number two, which we'll go to the second. If you say, no, I'm not having periods, then you have to ask the question, why? So that's not having periods is amenorrhea. Are you pregnant? Are you breastfeeding? Are you menopause? Or maybe you have a premature menopause? Do you have a hormonal health problem that's developed? You've got a low thyroid now or something like that, or where's your weight? So we know that women who are really underweight are prone to amenorrhea, and then sometimes overweight can be as well. So those are the things. So you have to ask that question, why? So really simple to ask that question. We go to the next question, question number two. He said, yep, I had answered, yes, and I say, do you anticipate having a period at about the same time each month? Now, it doesn't have to be the exact same, 28 days on the dot. It can vary by several days, but more or less the same time every month. And you say, yep, I pretty much every month I expect to have a period around the same time. And if I didn't, that would trigger me that, oh, my period is supposed to come and it didn't. So if you have that correlates with regular cycles. And you say that question, do you anticipate having a period about the same time much? You said, no, I don't anticipate having a period at more or less the same time every month. I can go a couple months or 3 months and not have a period. Then I might have one, but it's really unpredictable and irregular. So that would put you in the irregular cycle category.
Okay.
Okay.
I think I must have been under a mistaken impression that a regular cycle meant like the same number of days in the cycle or within like a couple days or something. And so I always thought that irregular meant like, maybe 1 month it's 35 days, another month it's 40 days. And, or because that would be like the kind of fluctuation I've experienced, or it makes it kind of hard to predict. You look at those women that are like, I have my period every 27 days on the dot. And you're like, you're terrible. How do you do that? Yeah, but that's good to know that it's not necessarily irregular if you're not like skipping a whole month, or it's just not being really weird, like 20 days and then 50 days or something like that would be pretty erratic.
Right. Yeah. And then that kind of ties in a little bit about, well, what is the normal menstrual cycle length? And some people use 22, 24 days from started one period to the end of the next and started the other one. And then usually most of the definitions are after 35 days. That's a longer menstrual cycle length than is, quote, normal. So kind of that 22, 24 to 35 day range.
Okay.
So, but you're right. I mean, someone could say, okay, January 27 days, February 31 days, February, March. March was 32. April was 29. That would be within normal.
Oh, okay, cool. That's good.
For a regular cycle.
Okay, cool.
Okay. All right. So now this is kind of just a little more, remember we're being intelligent. So we're trying to give you a little more background about what the cycle days mean if you're having regular cycles. So the days in the middle of the menstrual cycle are, if you will, much more fertile than the days at the beginning and the end of the cycle. And the reason for that is it's in the middle of the cycle when women typically ovulate and can conceive. Okay. So there's studies done that look at what is the probability of being in the fertile window based upon the cycle day. So we call that cycle day probabilities. On day 5, the chance of you being in the fertile window is only 4%. Okay. If you go up, let's just take a look at day 10. What is it? 49%.
Yeah, right.
It goes way up. Let's look at day 21. You're down to about 4% again. Okay. So this kind of gives you an idea simply based upon your cycle days, the probability of being fertile or not being in the fertile window. You can see like days 1, 2, 3, 4, essentially 0. After days 23, 2%, 1%, 0, 0, 0, 0. Notice it's not perfect, that but the chances are really low. Okay.
Yeah.
So we take that information, that's scientific evidence-based studies, and we kind of incorporate that into how we develop the method. Okay.
Cool.
So we call that cycle day probabilities. That's just, and some people there's some systems like it's called the cycle beads or the standard day methods. That's all they use. They just say days 8 through 19 percentage wise are the most fertile days. If you're trying to avoid pregnancy, don't have intercourse days 8 to 19. And days 1 through 7, days 20 to the end of the cycle are okay. Now that definitely doesn't, for women who are serious avoiding pregnancy, that's probably not good enough to just use that. And you have to have regular cycles of 26 to 32 days length and so forth. But that's just an example of a system that uses just this information here.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Okay, so we talked a little bit. So men are really kind of needy. They're kind of helpless, that sperm can't make it up for fertilization without the help of women and their cervical mucus. Okay. And so what the cervical mucus does is the word they use is capacitates the sperm. It gives the sperm the capacity, the nourishment, the transport media to go all the way from the vagina up into the fallopian tube where fertilization takes place. If there's no cervical mucus, it's like a fish out of water. The fish can't live and the fish can't swim. So if no cervical mucus, the sperm die within a few hours in the vagina. If there is cervical mucus, that we try to avoid more or less fertile terms, but let's just say that has the capacity for fertility, then those sperm can live up to 3 to 5 days. Okay.
Okay.
So that's why cervical mucus is so important. Now it has other functions. It screens out probably sperm that are when you do sperm analysis and that there's a lot of times there's sperm that aren't healthy or that they have some kind of problem and that are kind of screened out by the cervical mucus. So it has a lot of functions. Okay.
Cool.
All right. Now, so if we go back, think where fertilization takes place, is what we need is we need to have the sperm kind of up here in the fallopian tubes where and waiting for the egg, right? Because when the egg is released, and here's a picture of ovulation, if that egg isn't fertilized, it dies in 12 to 24 hours. So it just can't hang out here, for a couple of days waiting for the sperm to get up here. Okay, the sperm have to be up here waiting, and that's why intercourse pre-ovulation is the intercourse that's going to lead to conception.
Okay.
After, if you've ovulated and you have intercourse, you can't. The egg has died. So, and usually there's not the cervical mucus. And so that's why cervical mucus production really kind of, if you will, comes on and peaks before ovulation.
Okay.
Okay, so you got the basics. Well done about being intelligent. Okay, so we got some background information, knowledge, and now we're going to be reflective.
Okay.
And let me ask you this. What is reflection again? What do you?
It's paying attention. It's taking time to notice and to, well, I mean, it's another way of being attentive, but like taking in what you noticed when you were attentive and interpreting what that means.
Right. So you're kind of mulling it over, kind of giving serious and careful thought or consideration. And if you're going to really reflect on something, is it better just to kind of just reflect it on your own, your own ideas and intuition, or is there a better way to reflect?
Oh, well, obviously when you're married, it's better to bring your husband into it because two heads are better than one and you're a team. It's not like I was talking to my mom about this the other day and she said, you have to remember when you're talking about your cycles and charting and, talking with your husband that you talk about our fertility, not just yours, because as the woman, you kind of have this idea. I'm sure not all women do. I hope they don't, but it's sort of like I'm the reason that we have to practice NFP or something because I'm the one that makes, that has the babies. And if I didn't have these cycles and these things, it wouldn't be so complicated. So it's like, in a way, it's my problem or it's my responsibility. And so if your husband isn't inclined to be so involved or whatever, you could just be like, well, yeah, it's not really his thing. But it's like, but without him, there isn't anything happening. So it is our fertility. It's about the two of you together handling this in an equal way.
Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah, I think that your mother's advice and wisdom is great there. That it's our fertility, it's couple fertility, and to honest, it's the bulk of it in terms of observing is on the woman, but then this is where we want to involve and share the responsibility for family planning. So this is kind of and you said it perfectly. Two heads are better than one. That reflection is best done with others and your spouse, and they can contribute maybe to understanding that we've missed. I lost track of the 100 times. I've said to my wife, "I'm glad you thought of that," and so it might be, again, the husband listening and asking questions like, "Oh, did you say you had egg white, you had sticky tacky mucus in the morning, but then you had egg white mucus in the evening. What does that mean?" You're reflecting together. When you see the chart, you say, well, what should we circle here based on that? So again, with that reflection really to engage the husband is important.
Okay.
So the woman observes. Then the couple of charts, and charting is really simple, as you'll see. And then the couple together judges the fertile window. And I think that that's real important because that goes back to what your great point about them discussing our fertility is, oh, I can't believe you said that we were gonna we were quote safe, and now we have our baby coming along. Oh, that's great. All right, we can adjust. But the idea is that you kind of made the decision together.
Yeah.
You looked at the information. Uh, you were aware. You were intelligent. You were reflective, and this is what you thought.
Right. That makes sense.
Okay. All right. Now, I'm sorry that this is on a small slide, and this is the chart that we use for regular cycles. So remember, we kind of, at a decision point, we said, we have you have regular cycles. So this is the chart that we're going to use for that. We have a different chart that we use for irregular cycles and amenorrhea. It's a lot of it is exactly the same, but if you're not having cycles, you can't use cycle day probabilities. So we don't use that information. So that's why that chart and that practice is a little bit different, but it still involves that feel, see, touch. Do I have dryness, egg white mucus, or sticky tacky mucus?
Right.
Okay, so this is the chart, and it's going to kind of go through this, and this is kind of helps us reflect. Okay, the first part of that chart is, this is the headings. This is what you're going to circle each day. First of all, you do have to write in the calendar date. It's probably a good idea. And then you look at the cycle day. Now, I should have said this back when we were talking about the menstrual cycle. So the first day of a woman's period is defined as the first day of bright red vaginal bleeding. That's cycle day 1. Occasionally, women might have a little light bleeding or brown spotting before day 1, but that's the definition. And do women know day 1? They usually do. My period started. Okay. So that's something that, it's pretty easy. So that's the cycle day.
Okay.
Then the observation is, if a woman has menstrual bleeding, she circles the couple circles, the red circle. If she has sticky tacky mucus, then the yellow circle. And then if she has dryness, the brown circle, and egg white mucus is the green circle. And actually, we should switch these circles a little bit. Just it would make more sense to have red,
Green.
brown, yellow, green. But anyhow, so this is at the end of the day when you're reflecting and say, what did you see today, Laura? Well, I had menstrual bleeding, started my period. Okay, we circle that. Okay. Let's say you're down and it's day 6. Okay. What did you see? Well, I observed sticky tacky mucus in the morning, the afternoon, evening. You circle the L. Let's say it's day 6 and you saw that you didn't feel any mucus, you didn't see any mucus, there was no mucus, you were dry. You circle the brown. That it's day 8 and you felt wetness, you felt wet water, and then you looked at garments, there's some slippery, stretchy mucus there. You circle egg white mucus. Okay, so that column is for the observation.
Oh, and while we're talking about mucus again, I can ask you my question, because I remember back in the day when we talked about mucus, there used to be the wet water mucus, egg whites, and the sticky tacky. So now I see we're focusing on egg whites and sticky tacky, but the wet water is like a subcategory of egg whites. It's like the initial feeling of like, hey, I'm getting lubricated. Is that correct?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's a great point. Is sometimes when egg white mucus comes on, it's so estrogenized. There's that it has it can be almost like water. So all you feel is wetness, And if you try to pick up water, you wouldn't have much luck. You couldn't pick it up in that. So it's going to transition to where it's really, clearly egg white. But that is a sign of fertile type mucus, is that just that wetness, that wet water you described. We do categorize that under egg white. So
Okay, cool.
some people, and again, you got to be careful of the terms. They would say that that's, quote, high fertility.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because it's so estrogenized, so that means like
Yeah,
you're
and
close
it
to
just when it comes
ovulation?
on, and it usually comes on after your period in the pre-ovulatory time. So just kind of where it comes on the cycle
Right.
is a little higher. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm curious about that too, because I know like some women, when they're ovulating, they'll get a cramp on one side or the other. So they're like, oh, well, I'm ovulating today. And some women don't feel anything, and I never feel anything. But I always kind of would just guess that when my mucus changed from the egg white to the sticky tacky, it was like very noticeable, like bam, oh, it's different this time than it was before. And then it just keeps on getting more like that and then dries up. I figured I must have just ovulated before it turned, because now there's no need for it anymore. The body's shutting this down. Like, is that accurate, or is it actually truer that it probably happened well before that?
Right. Well, once you ovulate, the hormones are kind of changing. So the progesterone is kind of dominates in the latter half of the cycle. So once you ovulate, progesterone is secreted, and that dries up the mucus. So it goes from egg white to sticky tacky to dryness, and we'll talk about that.
Cool,
So you're
cool.
absolutely right there. The other point you had about feeling ovulatory pain, it's called Mittelschmerz, and it's obviously a German word for that pain a woman says that correlates with ovulation. But actually, the studies show it doesn't correlate.
Oh,
You can't really use
interesting.
that as a marker of ovulation. So don't feel bad. Yeah,
Oh,
because
okay.
I women say, "Oh yeah, I know when I'm ovulating. I don't need to practice NFP because I can tell when." But actually, if you're using that when you ovulate, it's the active intercourse before you ovulate that's going to lead to pregnancy. So
Oh no, you're too late.
it's
Oh man.
late, yeah. So
Okay, cool.
okay, so going across here, then the next column is we're going to have you circle whether the fertile window is open or closed, and then finally, if a couple has intercourse, we ask them to circle the gold diamond. So you can have a record in that too.
Cool.
Okay.
Okay.
So we're going to walk through this cycle here. Okay, cycle day is the counting day beginning with day one, the first day of woman's period. We talked about that, right?
Mhm.
The second is the observation, is what a woman observes when she feels, sees, and tests. The couple circles a symbol for the observation, as we talked about: red menstrual bleeding, brown dryness, yellow sticky tacky, green egg white mucus. And they use the most fertile observation of the day. So that would mean is if a woman said, geez, in the morning, in the afternoon, when I used the toilet and I was dry, I didn't see any mucus. I didn't feel any mucus. I'm dry. But then in the evening, notice that, oh, I have some sticky mucus. That day would become sticky tacky, and you would circle the yellow. The same thing is if in the morning and afternoon, a woman had sticky tacky mucus, but in the evening it was egg white mucus. I had that wetness. The green would be circled. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So now here's all you got to do. You got to judge: is the window open or closed for the day?
Okay.
And this is where it gets a little tricky.
Hmm.
So on this chart, you'll see. I don't know. Can you see my pointer? Does that come through or not?
No, I'm not seeing your pointer. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Here I am thinking I'm pointing out things and I'm not. But uh, here we are. So what cycle day is it? One
Day
and
two.
two.
1 and 2. Okay.
There's bleeding, right?
Mm-hmm.
So circle the red. And you'll see that the only option you have is to say that the window is closed. there's an X in the other column. And that's because based upon the day-specific probabilities that it's extremely unlikely that it's a fertile day, okay? So no matter what you see, days 1 through 5 are considered to be low fertility, infertility. And you don't have an option other than the closed window. Okay. That makes it pretty easy. Day 1
Yeah.
through 5. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Now that there's an issue. Well, what about sexual intercourse during menses? And it's safe, it's healthy, but a lot of couples, that's not something comfortable. In Africa, culturally, that's something that's not usually comfortable. But again, there's no, like, if you had, geez, I just have a little light bleeding on day 5, then some couples are couple. So that's, again, kind of a different issue. But days 1 through 5 are low fertility. Now, day 6 and 7 are the fertile window is open or closed. It depends upon the observation. If there's bleeding or dryness, the fertile window is closed. So if we look at day 6, what do you see there, Laura? What is circled?
Day 6, the doors are closed because it's dry.
Exactly. Okay, perfect. And then what happened on day 7?
Uh-oh, some mucus showed up. So now the window's open.
There you go. The window's open. You got it.
Right.
Okay. So the days 6 and 7 are days that, if a couple, again, is not comfortable having intercourse, if there's any menstrual bleeding, you kind of look at days 6 and 7. All right. And look at that carefully, because guess what?
Oh boy.
What happens days 8 through 14?
Oh, well, it's open, wide open, although we don't have any colors circled on these. So,
Yeah,
but maybe
no, I
you
forgot
could have
to.
a variation. Like some days it could be sticky tacky, some days it could be egg white. Right.
But based upon that, if you go back to that graph on the percentage of being in the fertile window, it is so high starting at day 8 through 14 that no matter what, you have to consider it as possibly fertile, and the fertile window is open.
Yeah, I'm seeing the X's. Like they don't even let you circle that it's a closed fertile day.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Interesting.
Now, there's some people that argue, okay, well, geez, you're completely dry and you're not going to ovulate till later. Again, maybe if you learn your own cycle on that, but this is kind of what's really based on the studies, and that's part of intelligence, is that we're really trying to base this upon what the scientific studies show, that the probabilities just go up, 8 to 14, fairly high. Okay. Now we get to days 15 through 21. And if we went back to that graph, you would see, the fertility, the chance of being the fertile window going down. So what do we see in days 15? What's the observation?
Well, we're seeing that you could have an open fertile window or a closed one. So on this chart, it's showing it's open still, and they're having egg white mucus on both of those days, and intercourse on both of those days. Oh wait, oh no, sorry, that's not circled.
But
I guess the gold diamonds go all the way down, right? Just in case.
Right. Yeah, and you have to circle the one. Yeah, but you're absolutely right. So this is, you're having egg white mucus on days 15 to 21. You have to presume that that's possibly fertile, and you're right. Now we come up to what I think is probably the hardest concept to kind of get when we teach this, and it is what we call drying up. And maybe to make a comparison is, if you think about a seed that you're planted in your garden, okay, on let's say on July 1st, it rains, okay, and you say, well, okay, there's water, that seed could sprout, right?
Yeah.
But that ground is going to be wet for another few days. It's not going to dry up. And then finally, when it dries up, it's going to be, the seed won't sprout. So if that makes kind of a bit of a crude comparison, is that drying up is the fertile soil. It takes 3 days. So after 3 days of drying up, we know that a woman has already ovulated, and she's not producing the egg white mucus, and she's in the post-ovulatory, after ovulatory infertile time. Okay.
Right.
So if we can, I'll just read that. Drying up is when a woman has 3 days in a row of sticky, tacky mucus or dryness following the last day of egg white mucus. So she had egg white mucus, it rained, okay?
Yeah.
And now it takes 3 days to dry up, and it ends at midnight of the third day. Then the fertile window is closed, okay? So that fertile window opened up on day 8, no matter what. And now it closes either by 3 full days of drying up in days 15 to 21, or when you get to day 22, and we'll talk about that.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So if we look
Mhm.
here at these pictures, picture number 1 shows egg white mucus. The next day, and you had said to yourself, oh, my mucus has changed. I can recognize that. It's sticky tacky. That's 1 day. Here it's sticky tacky again, 2 days. And now the third day, it happens to be perfectly dry. But any combination of sticky, tacky, and dryness for 3 days after egg white is considered the drying up. And then you're in the post-ovulatory infertile time.
Okay.
Okay. So here's, again, the same example. Drying up, and then you have the circles that you're doing here.
Mhm.
Now, these arrows are a little bit off, but here's how you would chart it. So this couple here, remember, days 8 through 14 are fertile no matter what. And then, Laura, maybe just not even looking at the arrows, tell me what you think happened on days 15, 16, and 17.
Well, it's changed. Mucus changed to sticky tacky, and then it didn't go back to egg white, so it just got dry 2 days after that. So because it never went back to egg white within that 3-day time frame, she's considered her fertile window's closed, and that's circled.
Perfect. Beautiful. That's the fertile window is closed on the midnight of the third drying up day. Now, this is something that is a little tricky. And I've talked with this a lot about Dr. Richard Faring, who is, I think, the best NFP researcher in the world. He's just done amazing. He kind of helped us in developing this, but when we were doing it as something called the couple beads. But anyhow, he's real sticky that you have to wait till midnight of the third drying up day. So 10 o'clock at night, not. And then you're not probably, if you're hopefully like most of us, you're going to be asleep after midnight. And so you're not going to go till the next day to really look back and say, okay, yep, now we're clear. It's actually not till the fourth day. So that's the rule. Now, if, who knows, it's after midnight at 12:01 and you say the fertile one's closed and that you had intercourse, you would be officially following the rules there.
Nice. Okay.
That didn't happen to us very often. Like, yeah. Okay.
It makes me think of like my grandma saying on Fridays during Lent, how she and her brothers would stay up late until midnight. They'd make like big ham sandwiches and they would just sit up and wait. And then at like 12:01, on Saturday morning, they like eat the ham sandwiches. Wow.
Yeah, there you go.
Those were the days. Yeah.
Gotta follow the letter of the law there. So. Okay, so that concept, drying up 3 days in a row, is important. Okay, so then what happens? And again, I apologize, I forgot to put in the observations here. Cycle days 22 to 35 are to the end of the cycle. What's going on with the window?
It's just closed and there's
It's
no
closed.
possibility for open. Okay.
Okay, now, and the other thing that's important to know is that most women aren't going to have 35-day cycles, so it's whenever it ends.
Okay.
It might be 26 days, it might be 28 days, might be 35 days.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. You're doing great. And then the final column is the circling the diamond bead if you had intercourse. And that's real important when you're learning the method. And if you're sharing that with a teacher and you say, oh, yeah, we're trying to avoid pregnancy, and we see all the gold line diamonds circled in, days 8 through, 14 or something. So that
Yeah.
it's a way of just kind of tracking things and understanding your cycle.
Right.
Okay. So now this is just a summary of what we've talked about. Uh, Days 1 through 5, what's the window like there, Laura?
Closed.
Okay, days 6 and 7,
Bleeding or
um, it's closed.
right.
And if it's mucus, it's either sticky tack or egg white, it's open.
Oh, then
What
it's
about
open.
day 8 through 14?
It's just fertile. Like it's just assumed to be fertile, so the window's always open.
Right, great. And days 15 through 21?
If you have egg white, then it's considered to be fertile. Or if it's sporadically egg white, and obviously until you get to that 3-day period of dryness or sticky tacky, then you're still in the open window.
Right, right, perfect. And then days 22 to the end of the cycle?
It's considered windows closed.
Right,
So
perfect. So again, those are, after, we talk about when we teach NFP, having a learning using couple, or a autonomous couple that's using the method. And, after usually 3 to 6 months, you go, okay, I got this. It's, you see this, and it's, don't have to reference the guidelines quite as much. It's pretty intuitive. Okay, very good. You're great. You know this well. Okay, we just got 2 quick imperatives here. I'm going to write down a few things I thought of, and then maybe you can add to that, Laura. So, what does it mean to be responsible with NFP? First of all, I think for a husband, it really helps that you're helping your wife so she has time for observations. Uh, that, okay, yeah, I can, go to the bathroom and use the toilet, and you're watching the kids and so forth. So just, you know, uh, that type of thing, just and encourage her to take the time for that. And then all of us, it's daily disciplines are hard, and the method only works as well as our discipline with it. So a woman really has to keep at that daily discipline of feeling, seeing, and testing. And if you forget, fall off, okay, that's okay. As you go along with it, you get used to the method, you might say, okay, days 1 through 5, I really don't have to check, and days 22 towards the end, I don't have to check, and that type of thing. But you really have to have that daily discipline of feeling, seeing, testing, and then the husbands with you doing the daily discipline of charting. And if you don't chart, you don't, and the method, you kind of lose track of where you are, then the method isn't going to work for you.
right.
Uh, you reflect together, you make responsible decisions about your pregnancy intention. You're kind of that you're both harmonized on together. Yeah, we'd love to have another baby, or hey, we're not ready, we're not there, and we're still got to really attend to the kids we do have. And then finally, to seek advice and support if you're struggling with NFP, that you reach out to a teacher or a friend or somebody, that you just don't kind of, oh my gosh, it's not working, it's beating me up, it's whatever, but you look for some advice and support.
Right.
um Laura, what would you add to those to be responsible? Anything else?
Mm, wow. Well, I don't know. I feel like that really covers it pretty well. I think that's cool to make it this thing where it's just kind of part of your daily communication with your husband, at the end of the day. Like, it's just part of how you talk about your day. And then you're like, oh, what were your signs? And then if your husband writes that down, and then he's like deliberately keeping track, and he's not just coming to you periodically and going, oh, is it time yet? And so that way he's like very invested and like remembers to ask you. And I think that is a lot of why the different studies about couples who use NFP show that they have higher marital satisfaction by like a huge degree, because their communication is better and they're very understanding of each other, and they're like, it kind of forces them into this rhythm and consideration. And so it's not the only thing that can do that, but I think that's really cool. And like you say, the daily discipline, because that's usually when it doesn't work. It's when you're like, oh, well, I didn't check for a while. I just thought it wouldn't matter. And then it's like, oh yes, I've definitely experienced that. So that's so funny. But yeah, no. And then like every month, with NFP, it's not like you're deciding that you're going to necessarily just do it for this open-ended period of time. It could just be like, this month we're going to do it, and then the next month you're like, it's time to talk about it again. Like, do we need to keep doing this, or are we now in a place where we could change what we're doing? We could maybe not worry about NFP for a while, or what could we do to get us to a point where we wouldn't need to use it anymore? Like, are there ways and things? So it's just this continual discernment and conversation. It's not like, yeah, we just started using NFP and then for 5 years we used it and never talked about it. I mean, it definitely shouldn't be like that. And also the couples that use it to help them conceive, like, this is just such a great tool to understand, how your cycle's working, so you can work with that. And also, as far as like reaching out to people about struggling with NFP, I haven't really asked, because I know that, most diocesan, if not all diocesan parishes, would have somebody, if you called and were like, is there somebody like certified or, who trains and mentors couples for NFP through your parish? They would have somebody most of the time, or the diocese would be able to put you onto somebody. Or are there like online resources where Catholics can go and find people if they don't know anybody or don't know how they would get in touch with someone? Do you know of anything like that?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. Is you would think, just to make a comparison, with artificial contraception, you can call up any clinic in town and, oh yeah, come on in for your birth control pill or whatever they're going to do to you, and it's all available, and insurance pays for it, and Medicaid pays for it, and everything else. But when you look at NFP, you go, okay, well, geez, maybe the church doesn't have anybody, or there's someone that they recommend, and that person can help you, but they live in Bozeman and that kind of thing. Now, with Zoom, things are different, but so it really is a problem that we don't have that ready access to NFP support. I think at least the Diocese of Helena is working on that, and they have people that they can refer you to. Sometimes people are kind of affiliated with their own system, so they want you to do, okay, we want you to do Creighton, or you want me to do symptothermal, whatever, and that can be a little frustrating if you're maybe, oh, I'm using a different method or whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that the diocese will continue to try to get it in place.
Right. Well, and then isn't that the St. Pope Paul VI Center in Omaha, Nebraska? Aren't they a fertility awareness center? Like, would they have resources or people if you were coming up?
So that's a great one. So they teach the Creighton method, and the Creighton method, there's some people that really, really like it, and that works well from that. It's a mucus only method. So that's the only biomarker it uses. So it doesn't use cycle date probabilities. It doesn't use thermometer and that. And there's some people that feel that the mucus observations are pretty intense. And we kind of simplified it. You got egg wire, sticky, tacky, but they're kind of subtype it even more. And so some people it works good for, other people it's not. And then it costs to use it. The instructor, I don't know what exactly the fees are, but that's another concern. But any method, I think if people are comfortable with creating, that's great. As I said, Marquette method is great. There's some people that now they're using fertility apps, and I have some concerns about that. Some of those apps they're simply based upon what I told you, that okay, days 8 through 19 are uh, fertile, the other days aren't. Some of them are based upon the history of your menstrual cycle, and they don't consider cervical mucus observations. Some use a temperature, but again, that's another option, is the apps.
Okay. That sheet that you showed us, is that like available for download somewhere? Or if people were to reach out to me after watching the video, could I share that with them?
Yeah, sure. And I can get you, right now we just have the African version of it in terms of the graphics and that too. But yeah, we'd be happy to do that. But, just some disclaimers that, it's not, we have to do scientific studies and research, you need lots of money. So even I'm going to say about 20 years ago, when I was first working on this system, and at one point, and we have an article published about it that gives some background, is I went to a major NFP researcher. It wasn't Dr. Faring, who did everything for free, but he said, "Yeah, I'd love to study this. I think this will work in that." And the fee to do it was, to use the research institute, and that was $85,000. So, we're a small nonprofit in Butte, Montana. We don't have $85,000, so we can get a scientifically published study. And but I'm fairly confident about the the effectiveness of the method, because it's based upon other studies, and I think good studies. And so I think it's one of those methods that's going to be put you in if you use it perfectly, and you are completely attentive, intelligent, reflective, responsible, and love, never make a mistake, then the perfect use of that would probably be in the 95% range. Probably the actual user effectiveness is probably it drops to the 88 to 90%. And that's the range where, if you really do good studies in that, where both methods are going to be, I think methods that claim that they're 99% effective, that's the evidence doesn't bear that out.
Okay. Right.
But
Right.
yeah, I'd be happy, anybody that's interested, that, through you, I can get them the information.
Oh, that'd be awesome. But I know you guys periodically update things too, because it's always a work in progress. So
Right.
yeah, but however that works, but at least to have something to start with. And for people who are, watching this and going, I need something simple I could get my head around, and something to start, I don't have to go format my own thing. Or because back in the day, I formatted my own cycle sheets because I just thought, that was easier for me, and to just like pin that up in the bathroom or inside the cupboard door and just like check it when I was there. Otherwise I would forget to do it at the end of the day. And yeah, so another thing I thought about for be responsible, honestly, extending to the rest of your family, because if you have kids and you're practicing NFP, this is going to be part of their formation, is like you said in the beginning, what is so beautiful about considering your body as a good friend, and teaching your children that their body is good, and that it's like it's their friend, and it's like you need to work with your body and understand it, that it's a good thing, and this is part of understanding how God made you, and it's not like this weird taboo thing. And whether you go on to get married or not, or ever to need to use NFP or not, it's still worth knowing this thing. Even your sons understanding the woman's cycle, because someday they'll probably be married, and bringing that to your marriage is such a gift to your wife, because you may know more about her cycle than she does, and that would just make her feel so safe, and knowing that you will take care of her better because you understand that, and that you'll be sympathetic to the fact that in a 24-hour day, a woman's in a different hormonal place, like every day. Like a man is a lot more consistent, but a woman isn't, and that could be really weird for a guy to get used to if they had no encounter with that before. And then for your daughters to know everything that's going on in their body, to not be afraid of it, to think, this is a good, beautiful thing. And it's like a miracle every time. And then conception is a miracle. It's like that can happen in your body. That's so cool. And I think it's, I understand why some parents are really like reluctant to talk to their kids about it, or just to acknowledge like, yeah, you know what, let's talk about mucus, or like, oh, mom's having her period or whatever like that.
Yeah.
It's not a place of comfort for them if they didn't grow up in an atmosphere where that was open. But I think part of responsible parenthood is, even Pope John Paul II spoke to this too, is like really preparing your child at an appropriate age for understanding all these things that will be part of their world for decades.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. No, I think exactly what you said is great. And, again, the idea of, we're happy talking about our elbows and our joints, but we're not talking about, about um, our fertility, and that's something. And you mentioned Pope John Paul II and his theology of the body. That's all about the goodness of the human body, the goodness of human sexuality. Uh, and then how do we order that into the dimension of love? And so I think, yeah, that is also important. Okay, I think I have one more slide.
Ooh, okay.
Okay, so we'll finish. We started with Bernard Lonergan, and then I love that he finished the fifth imperative is to be in love, and it's another way of saying in being God. And then when he actually outlines that, he says this love kind of weaves through all those, and and doing those things, being attentive, intelligent, reflective, responsible, is to be in love, is to be in God, and that completes the loop.
Yeah. Right. That's very profound. I mean, we were made by love, for love, and in love, like, and to love. Like it's everywhere in every fiber of our being. That's the common denominator, basically. So of course it should inform something that's so essentially related to married love and the production of children. It's like they are born from love. So that should be always kept in mind. That's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's kind of amazing. And like I said, you can teach your kids these five imperatives. If you didn't get anything else out of our discussion today, you learned to listen and ask questions and the five imperatives.
Oh, that's great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the slideshow. It's so good to put images with the words and to be able to just have more ways of connecting that in our brains and remembering it. And so, yeah, that's going to be great. Not so great for my podcast listeners, but that's okay. Come to YouTube for this one. Oh man.
Are they able to pull up the slides, or?
Oh, I might be able to attach it to the podcast file. I'm working on getting all my videos converted to just to audio and then putting them on podcast platforms because it's easier listening for some people and things. But for stuff like this, it's worth just sitting down and watching the video, I think, anyway. So I'll always link that to this. And yeah, so I'm curious. I mean, there's so much we could talk about as far as like good fruits following the practice of NFP. And I think some of those are just obvious from realizing how in tune we have to be with the wonderful creation of our body and being this composite being with our soul and body. Like they're not in conflict with each other. They're not like aloof from each other. They're totally integrated. And so understanding our body is only going to help our spiritual life ultimately.
Absolutely.
Understanding. Yeah, I think that's just something that's very easy to forget. And so many heresies in the church over the history of the church have been related to like a misunderstanding of the relationship between soul and body. And we're still fighting our way out of that. Maybe never totally will. But yeah, I think that's going to be something that hopefully really helps married couples who can benefit from this video experience once they start implementing these. And even if it wasn't for the sake of abstaining periodically, but just for the sake of being more on the same page about what's going on in our marriage and our intimate life. Yeah. Because you can't have too much of that. And it's easy to just not have conversations if you don't have to, but maybe it'd be better if you did. And yeah, I mean, it's funny, like, even though I've always like been open with my husband talking about stuff, but not so much so regularly as we are now. And I'm like, it actually feels kind of weird. Like I'm not inhibited about talking about it, but it's kind of like, oh wow, like I have to be really on top of this, and so that I can bring you into it, then we can really understand where we're at together. And it's just a little bit more work, but I think it pays off big time.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And St. John Paul II again said, real love is demanding. And to me, that's saying marriage is demanding. And so there it is. It demands on you that 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 you have this discipline, and that work on your communication and that. But in the end, as you say, it leads to a better marriage. But the idea that this is something that, oh yeah, we just float through this, where happily and easily attentive, intelligent, reflective, responsible, and love. It's real love is demanding.
Right. Right. Awesome. Okay. So you mentioned earlier, just real quick, you said that was the cycle sheet you showed us for regular cycles, but that you had a different one for irregular cycles. So I'm curious if there's any like quick points you could just say, like what would be different on that sheet, or is that something we could make available to people as well?
Sure, you can make that available in the regular cycle sheet, and we also use it for amenorrhea. It basically doesn't have cycle days, so everything is based upon observations, and there's some rules that on that too, because with irregular cycles, you don't know when your next period is going to come, and with amenorrhea, you don't have that, and so again, that's basically the difference. You do the vulvar observations the same, the circles are the same, drying up definition is the same, but there's some other little rules. And then, but the other part about the irregular cycles amenorrhea is that what you had mentioned early on about the breastfeeding, when we talked before the video, is that transition from what we call lactational amenorrhea, where if you meet three criteria, if you're fully breastfeeding, exclusively breastfeeding, your baby is 6 months or less, and you don't have a period after your normal post-delivery bleeding has stopped, that's lactational amenorrhea. The chance of getting pregnant is less than 2%. But then when that baby turns 6 months, or if you have a period, or if you introduce solids, you can't use that. But it's probably going to take a while. We want you to keep breastfeeding for you to resume regular periods. And that's what we call the breastfeeding transition. And that's the most difficult type to use NFP. And that's where, the charting comes in, and kind of some more instruction around that.
Okay. So you think we could do another video at a later time, just talking about postpartum amenorrhea and kind of how to handle that? Because I know a lot of women who are going to watch this are going, that's like me all the time. It's like me after every kid. Like, how do I, like, that's the challenge, is like, I have all these kids, and it's like, maybe I need a little more break. And so how do I understand what's going on? Because the signs can be different in different kind of patterns or length of time after every kid. It's not necessarily the same just because it's your body. It's like your body is a different age than it was the last time it had a kid. And it's telling you something a little bit different, or it comes back, more erratically. And so you just can't always know, but yeah.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. And I think no system has really figured out that problem in a perfect way. That is it's hard to know, because you're right. It can change from one person to the other. One pregnancy, postpartum experience after the other. Oh yeah, my period came back when I was 3 months, and the next time, it didn't come back until I was 7 months. Again, there's some women, it's 15 months and I haven't had a period. Well, starting at 6 months, the chances of you conceiving have went up, even though you're breastfeeding, you've introduced solids and that. So you're rolling the dice there if you're trying to space your children.
Right. Okay. That would be a great episode just to cover that. And I think, just give women a little bit more instruction. And then another thing I thought of asking you is, I've also heard that when you're learning NFP, if you're learning it and you're already married, that it can be helpful to totally abstain for like 3 full cycles. Was that about, is that ever been a thing so that the woman can learn to identify her signs apart from the husband's like fluids and stuff too?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And that kind of goes back to probably the 70s and 80s, and that now we don't teach that. And that didn't fly very well either. Guess what? Guess what, John? We're starting NFP, and we're not going to have relations for 3 months. But suck it up there, and give it up. Uh, so yeah. So now, especially like with regular cycles, that's pretty easy. Okay, you can just based on cycle days, you can get some guidance there, and then the concern about, well, how do you identify seminal fluid, the sperm-containing fluid, from cervical mucus? Well, mucus is a kind of a weird and special substance because it has some both solid and fluid characteristics to it. That's why if it stretches and can kind of become liquid and all that. Seminal fluid doesn't do that. It's a complete, more or less, liquid. And then there's some women that are prone to either yeast or bacterial infections that can have kind of a whitish discharge with if they have this condition called bacterial vaginosis. And again, that's watery. It's unchanging, unlike cervical mucus.
Okay. Oh, that's
so we feel better about, you can educate women that about those different kinds of discharge, and then this seminal fluid's going to dry up in a few hours.
Okay. Oh, that's good to know. Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, I think I don't want to keep you all day, and I just appreciate so much you're going over these things. We'll try to have, a final part to kind of go over any other odds and ends, and especially focusing on that postpartum period and the charting. And so thank you so much for your time, Dr. George, and all your wisdom and experience. It was really great, really good for me, and I hope very good for our viewers.
Yeah, no, great, Lauren. Yeah, I think you would be a great teacher. You know this well, and that. So, if you run out of things to do, you can teach NFP. And you guys got to meet two friends, your body and your best good friend, and Father Bernard Lonan. So
that's right. Thank you for the introduction. Awesome. Right. Well, God bless you, Dr. George. It was great having you. Bye. Okay, you too. Bye-bye.